Hello, and welcome, alumni and guests, to Mini Reunion 2025. My name is Sean McGrath. I'm the Post-50th Program Director and Alumni Engagement Associate Director. Thank you for being here to kick things off for the weekend. Before we begin, a little housekeeping. This session will be recorded, so questions, Q&A at the end of the session will be recorded and available online. Our first session will end at 3:15. We will have a 15-minute intermission. And the following session will begin at 3:30, promptly at 3:30, and is entitled Beyond the Classroom, Experiential Learning at Williams. Now, to kick off Mini Reunion, I'd like to introduce our moderator for the Lessons in Leadership, Athletics at Williams. Our moderator is someone who truly embodies the Williams spirit, Harry Sheehy, class of 1975. Harry's story is one many of you know well. At Williams, Harry earned a degree in American Studies and started on the basketball court, where he was a two-time All-American. He then spent 8 years playing with Athletes in Action and finished his career as the team's leading scorer. He also represented the United States in the 1978 Pan American Games and won the gold medal in Argentina. In 1983, he returned to Williams to lead the men's basketball program, guiding the East through an extraordinary era of success during his 17 seasons. He compiled the fourth best career record in Division III history, 324 wins, 104 losses, with a 757 winning percentage over 428 games. His teams appeared in 13 NCAA tournaments, including his final 12 years, and appeared in 2 Final Fours. As a result, he received many accolades and was elected into the inaugural class of the New England Basketball Hall of Fame, joining the likes of Bob Cousy, Julius Erving, and Jim Calhoun. In 2000, Harry left the court for the athletic director's office here at Williams. During his tenure, Williams teams won 17 national championships, had 619 All-American athletes, and won the Director's Cup, an award that's given to the school with the most overall athletic success every year during his decade-long tenure. In 2000, he left the Purple Valley and moved to Division I, serving as athletic director at Dartmouth College until his retirement in 2021. Harry's always had a keen interest in athletes being students and himself as a teacher, and he shared some of this wisdom and experiences in a book he wrote in 2002, which every parent or grandparent, I know I read it, of young athletes should read, titled Raising a Team Player, Teaching Kids Lasting Values on the Field, on the court, and on the bench, which provides guidance on how youth sports can instill important life values and positive character traits in children. Many of you know Harry not only as a coach, but you know him and his wife, Connie, as classmates and friends. Together, along with their fellow 1975 classmates, who just celebrated their 50th reunion, making this weekend extra special. Harry's connection to Williams runs deep, and we are fortunate to have him to guide today's conversation. So please join me in welcoming our moderator, Harry, Coach Sheehy.
So why don't we start here with Steve, just a brief introduction, and then we'll get going.
For sure. Hey, happy to be here. My name's Steve Kuster. I am the coach of the men's and women's swimming and diving program. I've been here since 1999, so starting my 27th season. Harry did not hire me, but was very early on in my tenure, and I have to thank him for making me feel exceptionally welcome here and guiding me sort of in the early years of my process, including opening a spot up in his golf foursome for me many, many times. So I feel like I was in good hands right from the beginning here. But yeah, I've spent really good, long time here so far, and have enjoyed myself most of the way, I have to say.
I am Kevin App. I'm the current men's basketball coach, beginning my 11th season as the head coach. I started my career here in 2008 for Mike Maker when he took over, when Coach Sheehy was the athletic director. Met my wife here, who was Coach Kuster's assistant coach at the time, and after that year, went off, spent 1 year at my alma mater at Cornell University, and 5 years at Army West Point before I came back here as the head coach in the summer of 2015. So Same thing. I feel like I've been around Williams now 17 years. I was walking a recruit around today. I told him the year my wife and I met here as assistants, and he told me that was the year I was born. So I'm at that stage now.
Hi, Meghan Gillis, women's ice hockey. I'm about to start my 15th year here at Williams, and it's been an awesome ride. Really excited to speak with you all today. Prior to that, had a couple quick stops. I went to Bowdoin, so I was familiar with the NESCAC. Originally grew up in Nova Scotia, Canada, so a little bit far away from home, obviously right now, but have made a new home in Williamstown that I've really loved. Have a couple young kids. I'll have to read Harry's book tonight and make sure I'm all brushed up on that. And
Actually, you can read it in a night.
Perfect. That's what I need. Bowdoin education, not a Williams one. So, but looking forward to speaking with you all today.
Right. And I just want to add one thing about the time limit here. These people are extraordinarily successful. And so it's my great honor to sit up here with them. And I do want to say a couple things as we get started. One, I was voted least likely to write a book by the class of '75. It's a little known poll. And secondly, I was a great coach when I had great players. Okay, so there's a saying in basketball, it's not the X's and O's, it's the Jimmies and Joes, right? And that's really true, and that's why recruiting, we're gonna talk about recruiting a little bit. So I'm gonna go back and forth. I am legally blind, and so it's a little bit tough, so I may stammer a little bit when I try to read, but I have two sets of glasses here, one that will make my eyes look like they're in a fishbowl, and one that doesn't. So I'm gonna start off by reading some names to you. McCormick, Lamb, Townsend, let's see, Odell, Farley, Mellandy, Russo, Manning, Chafee, Shaw, Coombs, Mason, and Pinard. And so those folks have a couple of things in common. One, they were all coaches. Two, they're some of the best teachers that have ever taught here. And so when I was the athletic director here, I screamed from the mountaintop that some of the best teaching happens at 4 o'clock on our campus, and it's called practice. So these are educated, you may or may not know, this is an athletic faculty, they're faculty members, and so it's again, my great honor to be up here with them. And so we're gonna start with a question about values. And it's interesting, I think Ted McPherson's out there somewhere, class of '67. Ted's a great friend, and we were having breakfast yesterday, and it piqued my curiosity about a question that I want to put to them. And we were talking about culture. And Ted said, you know, one definition of culture is values in action. And that really struck me as I went home. I don't get to think about this stuff very much anymore. It just struck me, and so I wanted to talk about core values. And it can be mundane, it can be more general, but I'm going to ask the coaches to simply talk about the 2 or 3 core values of your program. These are things that are repeated, you're working on them every day. Meghan, why don't you start us?
Perfect. Just what I wanted. No. So in our program, our core values, we use the acronym COWS. An ode to the purple leaf. So what each one stands for. C is control the controllables. So with our players, we talk about focusing on what's in your control and not wasting your time and energy on things outside of your control. And so we talk about what it looks like and what it doesn't look like to exhibit those core values. And within control the controllables, they have so many aspects of their life that can seem out of control to them. But I think when we break it down and really talk about what's in their control, they find it very helpful. And I love when I get texts from my alums in their jobs and they're like, had to control the controllables today. At work was a tough one, but that's always nice to get a note about that. The O is open and honest communication, fairly self-explanatory, but clear is kind. You hear that a lot, but being clear is kind, and being honest, right? And so in our job, sometimes we have to, tell the student athletes things they might not want to hear in terms of, their playing time or their current role on the team, but giving the respect of honest communication is really important, and creating a dialogue for them to have open conversations. So they're different than most of us in this room, where they would rather text than call, and if we call them, they panic that something's really wrong. And versus I would much rather have an in-person conversation or call someone on the phone, but we do Google Forms and all these different mediums for them to be able to connect with us. in terms of communication. And then W is like what's important now, and that's in terms of like we all want to win as much as we can. We want to have successful programs, but we need to focus on what's important now and be where your feet are. And when you walk into the hockey rink, we have hooks right outside our locker room, and we call it taking the backpack off. So when they're in class, I want them to be the best student for that professor they can possibly be. And then when they hang their backpack up and they walk into the locker room, I need them to be the best hockey player that they can possibly be. And so really emphasizing what's important now. And then the S is synergy. And I think that's why we all love sports, is because not one person can accomplish anything in the game of hockey alone, right? So the true spirit of sports is when like the sum is greater than the components of the parts, right? And so the synergy amongst the team, both on the ice, but then obviously trying to create relationships where they're going to be caring about each other and connecting with each other for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, I guess first I would say back to the culture piece. We have a quote outside of our locker room that says, "The tradition is not the culture, it's the people in the locker room." And that is, one, just a reminder that, one, we have a great tradition because of Coach Sheehy and his coaches and his teammates and his teams. We are lucky that we have this strong backing of a tradition. But that doesn't mean anything if the people in the locker room aren't the right people and aren't doing the right things every day. So then we give them four, core values of our program: our trust, appreciation, balance, and selflessness. For us, trust is, to me, the most important thing of any group of people. To reach their potential, they have to have a basis of trust. Balance. I don't know if I was not the coach at Williams, if that would be one of my core values, but I think it is the essence of this experience that the young men and women are take part in. And selflessness is, eventually these young adults are going to go off into families and careers where if you do not learn to get over yourself, you're going to be in for a rude awakening. And plus, it's how the game of basketball is played at its best. And then appreciation. And, appreciation for us is, we've all probably had this moment of a Williams College student tell you how stressed they are about their job applications or their interviews or their tests coming up or, the national swim meet or, the big Amherst basketball game. And you look them in the eye and you remind them, you get to live currently in a vacation town that people will travel to for arts, for nature, all right, for the beauty of it. You get to do it around peers that are the best and brightest people in the world. You get to do it with the best faculty in the world at the #1 ranked college in the world. And our team's nationally ranked. And the companies you're interviewing with are the best companies in the world. And they look at you and say, "Oh," it's like, "Yeah, you're good." But I think our worst moments as coaches are when you feel a player or a team not enjoy the moments that they're having here at this wonderful place and wonderful experience. So again, those are ours: trust, appreciation, balance, and selflessness. And what we do with them and how we talk about them changes by the week and by the people in that locker room.
Yeah, I think we had a little different path of getting to what our core values are. I learned relatively early on, maybe not quite early enough, but relatively early on, that if you're not paying attention to your culture, it's going backwards. So for a long time, we didn't have words. We didn't focus too much on it. I think, if the question was, do my kids back in the early 2000s know what our core values are? I think they'd have an idea. They'd take a stab. I think they knew what I stood for, but it took us a little while. Quite honestly, even conversations with Kevin and at times Meghan, for us to get to that point where we actually have core values that are set, that I'm confident that if you ask our kids, they're going to know what they are. I haven't thought about it quite like this, but I guess ours is RISE squared. So respect, inclusion, support, environment, and excellence. And I think the one that, they all matter, obviously, but I think the one that I look, is that RISE? Does that work? Okay, good. You guys are looking at me funny. Yeah, exactly. So I think the creating, so I'm super competitive, as obviously as Kevin and Meghan and Harry, I'm sure still is, but we don't spend a lot of time talking about winning. We spend way more time talking about the process, talking about creating a great culture. So in my mind, if we're creating a great culture, we're bringing in the right kids and they are willing to work hard, we're creating a great experience. The rest of the stuff is going to flow from there. The winning, the great diving, the great swimming, championships, all that stuff. And honestly, it's much more fun to focus on creating that great experience than being worried about how fast somebody's swimming or who's swimming better or what score the meet's going to be. So that, to me, that's where I think a lot of my joy has come in the last 10 plus years is sort of really working on making that culture as good as it can be. And obviously every year there are people coming in and people leaving, so that culture's changing. It's something that you can consistently work on. The message is, to Kevin's point, the message is really very similar, and then a lot of times they get to kind of pick it up and mold it a little bit sort of the way each team wants to. So it's just a bit for me.
Thank you, guys. So I think you get an idea of the depth of thought that goes into creating this. It's not, I think sometimes people are really shocked at the amount of time coaches have to think about the product that they're going to put in the pool or on the court, on the ice, that if we want to be successful, and one of the people said it, I think, Steve, you talked about process, that any great coach I've ever known has hardly talked about winning and losing. They've talked about the process. And I think that's really critical because kids can get lost in the pressure of winning and losing. The process relieves a lot of that. On the reunion weekend this year, Connie and I have had this habit of every group of 5 years, the kids who played for me come to the house in the afternoon. And so this year we had the class of 75 freshman team, but we also had the seniors of 85, 90, 95, and 2000. And I was sitting in the porch talking to 3 kids that played for me in the 90s, and we started to talk about a game. And I had this, one of my core values, this is really stupid, was never let the second pass be caught by your opponent. So we miss a shot, they get a rebound, ball comes to the point guard, do not allow the second pass. And so we're sitting there and we're talking about this game, and one of the guys goes, "Coach, it was driving me nuts. Did you see how many second passes they gave up?" And I went to Connie and said, "I can die now. I can die today. They actually listened." And you kind of go, well, maybe they heard some other things. All right? And so these core values are really important. They are the bedrock of our program, and they're bedrock of our teaching. So now we're going to move on and talk about character a little bit. We used to tell our guys, I want good character, not characters. And so it's really, this is a piece that's really important to our coaches. We look for different things. And so I'll ask Steve to start off just a few of the elements that are important to you, what you look for in a student athlete in terms of character.
Yeah, I mean, I think, so we have a big team. I coach men and women. We're around 60 athletes usually, and divers included in that. So I think one of the big things is, and I know a lot of times swimming is lumped into an individual sport. I mean, we coach the team very much like it's a team sport. So when you come into the program, you have to appreciate and be willing to put yourself aside, put the team first. I mean, I talk all the time about the people who are doing the best job are the ones who are coming in every day to practice, figuring out how they can make the people next to them better. Because if you're doing what you need to do to make them better, in my mind, you're almost guaranteed to be doing what you need to do to make yourself better. And in my sport, there's a lot of back and forth. You're looking at the black line, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. It lends itself to being in between your ears. You can spend 2 hours swimming back and forth and only be stuck with your thoughts if you allow yourself to. For me, it's sort of getting outside of that. If you have 15 seconds at the wall, you're sucking wind, quite honestly. So is everybody else. But if you got a moment to just be like, hey, we got this, let's go, here we go, next one, whatever it is, I think that makes such a huge difference in the environment that you're creating. So I look for that sort of first and foremost, and I feel like in my sport it's important on the way in for them to hear that yeah, this isn't going to be about you. I'm going to care what your individual goals are, and the way we're going to get there is probably somehow you've never gotten there before. And then I guess, confidence is obviously important, but I think for me, it's a combination of sort of confidence and humility. That's the most important. I want to be good. I want to win. I want to do all those things all the time, and I want to do it the right way. And I want people to look at, when I first took over the program, I took over a storied program. I did not make this team good. I just thankfully haven't screwed it up too much. So, but I can remember hearing stories about, especially from the guys' team, yeah, we get booed, we this, we that. Nobody really liked them, mostly probably because they won a lot. And in my mind, I wanted the exact opposite. I wanted to win a lot, and then I wanted people to hate us because they couldn't hate us because we did it the right way. We were good people, we were good sports, we were likable. And I feel like we've been able to do that. But so I feel like, yeah, I want people who get up behind the blocks and they're ready to go, and they know whomever's around them isn't going to beat them. But at the same time, if you gave me that without the other piece, I wouldn't want it.
Kev, why don't you go next?
Awesome. Sorry, I tell Steve all the time, he talks about storied programs, and I tell him whoever ends up being the next swim coach, I'm going to have to take out to lunch quite often because, like I said, Coach Shaw, Tong, Coach Sheehy, Paulson, and Maker. Yeah, you're only number 3? Yeah, wait till number 4 swim coach. But no, I think, Steve just said a lot. I mean, character to me is, it is who you are. At your core, your identity. I think it's who you are in front of people and who you are away from those people when you're by yourself or in front of a group. To me, it's who you are when things are going well for you and who you are, when things are not going well. And both are going to happen. And to me, you really don't know someone's character until you see them in all those phases. And if it's consistent, that's really the essence of who they are. So in our program, what we, I forget what book I was reading, what summer. I think it was about Barcelona soccer and Pep, the famous football manager. And he talked about your values are great, but your values should drive your actions. So what are your core actions? What do you want to be as a program, as a team, as a person? So we took those core values I just talked about, and we started saying, all right, if that's what we value, we should be, and we say humble, kind, and committed. Those are the 3 areas that we talk about. We say that's our identity as a team. And how do we highlight that? When we talk about it, to steal from other coaches in our department, we have them discuss, all right, what does it mean to be humble? Not the generic stuff, what does it mean in your everyday actions to show humility? And what do you do that doesn't show humility at times? And we say in those 3 areas, commitment is putting in the work, that competitive spirit that Steve talked about. If you're committed to something, you're going to fight for being the best at it. And being kind is, in this community, like I said, if you lose on Saturday and you go get a coffee, you're probably going to get asked about it. If you win the game on Saturday, you're probably going to get asked about it. And you should treat people the same in both situations, and they should leave that conversation feeling great about who you are as a member of our program. And I always remind them too, the best part about Williams is I'm going to hear about how you responded in both of those situations. So that's how we kind of define our program's identity is those values I talked about should drive that identity of humility, kindness, and commitment. And then one area we've started doing is each team, that's our identity in the, our way of life, our everyday life. I allow each team, usually led by the upperclassmen, to try to figure out what they want their team's identity to be on the court. And then we go through that same process of, all right, well, you said you want to be a competitive group. What does that look like? And it becomes kind of hopefully a rallying cry throughout practices and games. Allows me to pull from something. I think the other message we apply in our program is the word accountability gets thrown out a lot about in athletics. Usually your captains are going to say it and they don't know what they mean by that. Usually it just turns into somebody yelling at somebody. So that what we define is the areas you can hold your teammates accountable are those areas. If they are doing something that does not represent humility, kindness, or a commitment to our group and excellence, you should let them know about it. And we talk about how to do that, what's the best manner to do it, and it's usually immediate, kind of simply, and then receive it. It's like, all right, I can't fight it. If my teammates said I'm not representing our identity, I have to course correct because they're, not going to be doing that in a mean way. So that's kind of how we try to grow it is, don't yell at everybody about everything. It's when you see them not representing who we want to be, that's the one time, and that's how we define it with humble, kind, and committed.
I don't know that there's too much left, honestly, but it's never lost on me how lucky we are to work here. The type of student athlete that arrives here is special, and it's changed a ton in the 15 years that I've done this here, and in different ways, and not anything I don't think better or worse. But what I think does also get tossed around a lot now is the whole growth mindset, the Carol Dweck, like all of that definitely gets mentioned. But I really do think with today's student athlete, there is a lot of truth in that. They come to Williams having sometimes not really failed before, having been the best student always, having been the best player on their team always, and for better or for worse, honestly probably just for worse, the high school journey has for the most part become very individualistic, even in team sports. So sometimes they'll play on 4 different club teams, or transfer to a different high school is very common, or taking an extra year. And so that really changes like why they play the sport and why they love the sport. And so I think character, sometimes we lump it in with how much do they love hockey and how much do they love playing that sport, and trying to get a really good sense of that early on, because we have this saying that like they can make each day as Division I as they want, as intense as they want. So we have lots of resources here at Williams in the program, and each day they can choose to use as many of those resources as they want. And so we want them to have that like love of the game and that passion to then have that growth mindset and want to get better. And no one's transferring in, right? We're not getting these transfers in from other schools, which I think is great. I'm happy to just be able to give them the time to grow and become a better person, both as a hockey player, but more importantly as a person every single year that they're here. And so that's a huge piece of what we talk about, is that resiliency and that growth. And then we also, definitely talk about inspiring the person next to you a lot. And that includes like how you show up every day, but also like empathy, right? And just taking a minute sometimes and trying to like gauge where people are, and then bring them back to like the core values, the identity of like what we're trying to do, and have that be like, again, something they're passionate about, they love. And it's sports. It's supposed to be fun, right? It should be like they're running down to like, get on the ice and be excited about it. That's what we want. And so we're trying to create environments for that. And when you have people with good character who love their sport, it goes a lot easier.
That's great. Thank you, guys. I was, when I was at Williams as a coach, and if I sensed that our kids were getting a little tense, I would always say, look, boys, here's what we're doing. We're in our underwear, and we're throwing an orange ball through a ring that someone decided was going to be 10 feet high. They were so stupid, they didn't even cut the bottom out of the peach basket for 2 years, right? They had some guy sitting there on a ladder. And so I said, and whether we win or lose, it's going to be days before China knows the score, right? So I went recruiting one time, and it was a kid from Central Mass, and Kevin may or may not remember the kid, but anyway, it was a playoff game. And a kid who was an 8th grader on the opposing team hit a shot from half court. It was an up and down game, really good game. And this player that I was recruiting, his team lost. And I'm always watching, I watch the bench. Like if I go to Kevin's games, I watch the bench. Like if I go to a hockey game, I'm watching the bench. because I want to see what kids are doing. You know, there's an old saying, this is a freshman, this is a sophomore, this is a junior, and this is a senior. Okay, and so what happened was this young man ran off the court, left his team there to shake hands. I stopped recruiting him. Now, here's the important thing. Where do you think he went to school?
Amherst.
Amherst, where we kicked his rear end for a few years. The other thing I would say about this is, you know, we do deal with the fact of whether we recruit character or we develop it. And I think probably it's a hybrid, right? We're not going to get finished products here all the time competitively or personally, as good as these kids are. And so we have to develop the character in the young men and women that we coach. When I was a junior, Al Shaw had retired and Kurt Tong had come to take the team. And Kurt became a very strong mentor in my life right through the time of his death. And I remember one day, I thought I had played a particularly good game the night before, and I thought I'd stop by the basketball office to get some compliments. And so I sat there, and we're talking back and forth, and Coach Tong goes like this, Harry, it just strikes me that if you're really any good, you just won't have to tell anybody. And I went, I gotta go, Coach. Honest to goodness, I went back to my room and I sat on the end of the bed. That was life-changing for me in terms of my character, in terms of the things that I cared about. So as we go forward, one of our big selling points in athletics is transferable life skills. Okay, things like work ethic, the ability to work on it as a teammate, all those things that we talk about. And so I'm curious how you guys to reflect on this and whether it's true or not. Right? I think it rolls off our tongues so easily. Well, you're going to get life skills from this. And so, Kevin, I'm going to start with you. Just talk a little bit about this ability. I mean, we all hear from our players after they graduate, right? It's already been referenced. But Kevin, start off and just touch on this issue.
Yeah, it is, well, one, just listening to Meghan and Steve, if they just said what they said to you as a swimmer, ice hockey player, you should learn something in that experience. So you're just talking about, one, just like Coach Sheehy said, the thought you have to put in as a leader. I think, one, you're learning that. You're learning how, to fail. Like I coach a 3-on-3 basketball class on the outdoor courts behind Mission. This year I have 4 young people that have never touched a basketball before. And we started playing the other day, and one of them did something she perceived was wrong and just stopped. And I started laughing, and I said, I bet you've never done that before. And she said, what? I said, you got it wrong. And she looked at me, and she goes, well, what do I do right? I go, you move on and you do something else. So I think just little stuff like that. You learn, like I said, you learn how to sacrifice for the group around you. You learn how to fulfill a role, whatever that is, and how important that is when you're in a family, when you're in a company. I could go on and on. Coach just said, or Meghan and I gave a talk to our first-year students, or first-year student parents at orientation. And I talked about a text message I received on my 40th birthday. Yep, I'm officially old. Thought this group would enjoy that. All right. But I got a text from a player that graduated a few years ago, and he said, thanks for changing my life. And he did not mean me. But he meant this. He meant this experience as a basketball player at Williams College in this environment and everything he learned. He learned how to take a different path and be confident enough in doing that, knowing that it might fail, I might face setbacks, and I know I can move on. All right, I know that losing in the Sweet 16 wasn't the end of the world. We got back on the horse and kept working and kept achieving it. I found out that getting benched, my junior year, which he did, and he didn't like it, and he got over it and impacted the team and kept being a leader. And has just as good a relationships with me and everyone else on the team. So again, I could go on and on about what you learn. And I think the best part about coaching at Williams is we learn every day, every season, every month from the student athletes that we coach. I've coached artists musicians, bio majors, econ majors, and one of them was, I was at a wedding last weekend describing some company he started, and I just shook my head. And now I have to go look it up and learn about what he was actually describing to me. But again, I think the biggest thing you learn is that in a group around you where you're competing and striving for big goals, that you can do it. And that it might not go perfect, and it's not a linear path, and that's going to be the rest of your life. And that a little setback here doesn't mean you got to give up, especially when you're in a group that's all working towards the same thing and you're supported in that environment.
Meghan, why don't you go next?
Sure, I think it's very hard to go through life like completely alone, right? Most people have like their family, their workplace, all these different, aspects of their life of where they're connected with other people. And that's what team teaches, is how to interact and be a good person with other people. And life tends to go a lot better when you learn how to do those things and sacrifice for something greater than yourself. And when that starts to become easy, then life is a lot more fun. And so there's nothing better, in my opinion, than a liberal arts education. There's nothing better than the way it's set up in the NESCAC. I'm obviously completely biased in that, having gone to one and coached at one for so long, but there's a true magic to it, and I think that anyone that does it, hopefully would say the same, and the the impact that it just has on you, for the rest of your life, and that's something that I think they care about, and it really does make our job of writing lots of, pre-med recommendation letters and pre-law and all the, I just wrote one for veterinary school last night, and so those are easy to write because what they do is really important and really adds value to them as a human being, and that's what our job is, to try and impact who they are now so they can go out in the world and impact it in a positive way for the rest of their life.
Steve?
Yeah, my head's actually going in all kinds of directions on this, so we'll see how this comes out. But I think the first thing that comes to mind after listening to these two is you learn how to be uncomfortable, which I think, to Megan's point, maybe we've gone a little on the way of wanting everybody to be comfortable and everybody to feel okay, and that's good in some ways, but I think you're not going to go through life without being uncomfortable, and I think sports generally, whether it's uncomfortable with success and figuring out how to handle success or how to handle failure or how to figure out how to make those next you better. How can I be excited for Kevin? He scored 30 tonight, and I went 0 for 3. Right? Those are maybe uncomfortable doesn't fit all those things, but you have to figure out how to deal with so many different situations and how to, I think you build the knowledge of self and what your character is like by going through those experiences. I think about all of the coaches here who are absolutely outstanding. You cannot, unless you have your eyes and ears closed, all of your career at practice, you cannot walk away without having learned something. If you're just watching your coaches, if you're paying attention, which I'm sure they do, right, to your point, oh my God, they listened. I can die now. I feel that way about my kids a little bit, now that they're older, they're 21 and 24, and they'll say something, usually to my wife, but which is good, but they'll, and she's like, no, I think they actually listened, right? You can't go through a season here without learning from your coach, your mentor, because they are wonderful people. If you just watch how they do things, if you just watch the type of people they are, if you watch how they handle themselves in victory and defeat in tough situations, how they handle difficult situations, as a student athlete, you are learning as long as your eyes and ears are open. You might not know it in that moment because you're too young and dumb and whatever else, but you are learning from the people who are leading you. And honestly, when both my kids are college or were college athletes, and that was one of the most important things to me in their search, and it wasn't about me, but was, okay, who's gonna be leading them? And I know my wife and I did our absolute best to raise good boys, but the college years are so formative that I feel like that relationship was critical for me in feeling good about where my kids were going to school.
Great. I thinking about learning from other coaches, which you're right, if you just hang around You're going to learn some things. And so we all used to do, I don't think we coach two sports anymore, do we? But we used to coach two sports. So my first assignment was head coach of men's basketball and head coach of club women's softball. Oh, I feel so bad for those women. And so finally, we took it varsity, and I went to Bob Peck, the athletic director, and said, you got to get these women a coach, because it isn't going to be me, right? And so what I did was I left, and Bob said, well, what else do you want to do? I said, well, I'd love to coach JV soccer. Why? I wanted to be around Mike Russo, the coach. I just wanted to watch what he had built. I was very young in my career. I got the job when I was 29 years old. And so at that point, I was one of the youngest, maybe the youngest head coach in the country. I had no idea what I was doing. And so when I observed Mike, and I actually, as great as Mike was, I saw some things he did that I would love to do. I saw some things I wouldn't do, right? And so you learn. You can't help but learn. Their coaches are so good. And you're learning that they're also pretty articulate. We have made full sentences the entire time we've been up here. As for character, I had a player my first year, a very good player. He was pre-med. He graduated, he went to medical school. Now, we all know the worst of our players, right? We see the best and the worst. And I said to Connie, if I'm ever in a car accident and he's my surgeon, don't let him cut me. I'll take my chances. But then you go, you know what? He developed. And then finally, I had a player who was a co-captain for me, and he was a great young man by the name of Seth Mayer. And he was also pre-med. And he left school, and the next year I got a letter from him. And he said, hey, Coach Sheehy, I just want you to know med school's really tough, but Williams prepared me well. But the thing that prepared me the best for medical school was the basketball program, because you held a high standard every day. And I've learned to make that a part of my life. And so when you get, again, you go, wow, a little bit of knowledge dribbled in to the corner of the mouth, right? And so those are really rewarding things for coaches. And as we talk about process, the process builds those things in the young men and women that we coach. We're going to go on and talk about fit now, recruiting, and the fit and thinking about what makes a good fit at Williams College. My poor dad, I used to drag him recruiting all over the country. We get in the car and we drive 7 hours to see a kid. Well, I went to him at one point and said, Dad, I think the kid's pretty good. Down in New York, he's the first or second leading scorer in New York City. He's interested, and I'd like to go see him play. Do you want to go? Well, my dad, he worked in New York, and so we'd go along. So we get to the gym, and it's one of these typical New York gyms where there's a door on each side of the court, and you walk in, and there's no way out the back. You got to come out the same way you went in. So we walk in, I look up in the stands, and there's his dad. So I go, Dad, we're not sitting next to him. We're going down the other end. We go and we sit there. This kid was horrendous. I couldn't believe I drove 3.5 hours. And I had to buy my father dinner, right? So I go to him, he's like 2 for 20 in the first half. And he's small, but slow. So I went, this isn't going to work. So I look at my dad, I go, Dad, we got to stay here for 3 quarters. I can't leave. So at the end of the third quarter, I go, okay, Dad, I think we can go now. I said, but Dad, we got to be quick here, because we got to get out the door. So as we get behind the scorer's table, here comes Dad. And he intercepts us at the door, and he says, oh, Coach, I just want you to know, he's really nervous because you're here. And I said, well, that's unfortunate, because if he comes to Williams, I'm going to be at most of his games. And so, and here's why it was a bad fit. He stunk. All right, but there are other types of fit that are really important, and I would tell you that, and I'm sure these people would agree, a bad fit is really tough to manage. Like if you have, it's like a bad marriage, right? Not that I know anything about that.
You know nothing about that.
So, Steve, why don't you start us off? Talk a little bit about what you look for in terms of fit. What makes someone fit here?
Well, so, you told me from more or less one of my first years here, so you have to work hard, know the place, and you'll be fine. And I think, that has always been true for me, and I think it's gotten slightly more complex over time, unfortunately. But, I think for fit for us, we are different than these two in the sense that we've got times, which is both a blessing and a curse in terms of our recruiting. I didn't learn quite as early on about times as I did about culture, so I've been blinded by times more than on a couple occasions where I'm like, wow, that time is really, it's like a moth to a glowing light or whatever. It's very bright and shiny, and you're like, yeah, like I can do something with that. And you kind of have a tendency to ignore some of the things that you know you shouldn't ignore that are either red flags or just not the right fit. You know, that whole, I don't think I'd buy anymore that whole, well, we'll just bring them in and then we'll take care of the character and we'll take care of the other things. They'll learn from the upperclassmen. I don't know if that's actually true. So we avoid those situations whenever we can. I tell recruits I'm greedy because they will frequently ask now because I feel like they're way more well coached now than they were in the past in terms of the recruiting process and whatever. So they'll ask, what are you looking for? And I just simply tell them that I'm greedy and I want it all. And what that means is everything from you have to be the right academic fit, you have to be you have to have the right character, which is often hard to tell in the recruiting process. So I think to your point, it's for sure a hybrid. I think you mentioned that before. I want in a large individual sports, I want team players. Always want team players. I want people who don't take themselves too seriously. I want people who are passionate about swimming. I want people who work hard. I obviously want people who swim fast. I want people who are motivated and can motivate. I want to keep, I've been doing this for a long time, so I want to keep enjoying what I'm doing, which makes sort of finding the right fit really important. And it's hard. You can have tons of conversations with these kids, sit down with them once or twice in person, and you can't always tell. But I think if your process is pretty, you should dot your I's, cross your T's, you've got a good chance. And this I think is one of the things that defining our culture more clearly over the last 10 plus years has really helped us in terms of recruiting, because those recruits hear it from me and then they come when they visit campus and they can see it from the team. And then it's easier for those kids also to know either that's for me or that's not for me. So hopefully there's some sort of process on the recruit side too, where they're realizing this is the right fit or this is not the right fit.
I'll go off of that. I, similar to Harry, got hired at 26, I think I was, to be the head coach here. So jumped right in, but also did JV soccer as my second assignment under the great Michelin Pinard, which was amazing. Same thing. I was like, I'll just be a sponge. And then Mike Maker was my co-head coach of JV women's soccer. So just two amazing people to learn from. And I think, tying that into this is, we do always talk, I think, amongst coaches about fit a lot and what we're doing. And this summer I had a bit of a philosophical crisis in terms of I've been recruiting. I laughed really hard when you said, short and slow, because I had been, we're never going to get someone who can do it all. They get full ride Division I offers, as they should. And so when we're out there, there's no times. We're just scouting based on beauty is in the eye of the beholder, right? So whatever we're seeing as the coach, but you're trying to have the physical attributes that you're going after, whether it's going to be speed or size, their hockey IQ, all those types of things. And so I was trying to, reassess and have a really, mostly a conversation with myself, honestly, but then asking different coaches, what do you look for? What are the keys from a purely hockey perspective? And so as I was going down that road, I realized okay, I just have to go back to my, Steve and I were next to each other for my first maybe 10 years, our offices were next to each other. And so I think we came up with the greedy thing, or I stole it from you, because I say that as well. We want it all. We want you to be extremely bright. We want you to be a good person. We want you to have that growth mindset and want to become a better player in person. And so definitely greedy is in there with, how we get the right fit is almost should come naturally based on all the other things that we've talked about up to this point.
Yeah, I think I was going to mention a little bit of what Steve did at the end. we spend a lot of our time in basketball as a staff evaluating young men all over the country, then go through the process of communicating with them, and then they kind of self-select of are they interested or not, and then admissions kind of helps select who is a Williams student or not, and then from that group of the most talented basketball players in our evaluation that are admissible to Williams and Williams type students, we really, to get that final fit piece, put a lot of value in the on-campus visit the fall of their senior year. If you follow college athletics and are on social media, you see all these things about, oh, I got offered a spot at all 25 different schools, like you only need more than one. You don't rarely do you see that about, I think, Williams men's basketball, and that is because we don't really do that. Part because I'm really grateful that I work here, because we don't have to lie, we don't have to hide who we are, and we don't have to force somebody to come here. So we want them to self-select that is the best program and opportunity for me. And you can't do that until you feel this place where all the students here, you spend time with our team. And as Steve said, one of the reasons we can articulate, or I can articulate what my values are, what we expect, how we hold you accountable as a player, is because we tell them. And we just flat out, this is what our program is, this is what is going to be expected of you, and you don't have to come. But the people that will come are going to have a great experience, because we have 30 years, 50 years of proof that the people that select that this is the best place and program for them are going to have success. So that is how we find that ultimate fit, is we let them say, I fit this. And if we bring 12 people to campus and 10 of them tell me I fit this, I have to make hard decisions about the basketball, positional fit and all that stuff. But as my wife keenly and confidently reminds me every year, not everyone's going to like you. But I say, as long as you do, and as long as 4 do, as long as 4 guys every year do, and as long as she does, I'm fine. But so that is one way we really try to find the fit, is we take a slower process, I think, than some programs, because we can. And that's where I love being the coach at Williams, because it suits my, I think, personality, and my sales pitch. I can sell a luxury vehicle. I don't think I could sell a used vehicle. And I get to sell more of a luxury product, which is great.
Great.
Yeah, I think we're not going down the recruiting path, I know, but I do think, to your point, like lots of the recruiting landscape, I think, has changed dramatically, for sure, since you were probably sitting in that seat. But so many places, everybody wants to do it earlier, which it just absolutely drives me nuts. I mean, the earlier you go, I think the less a kid knows about what's the right fit for them, or even who they are, or what they even want in their future. So I do think I think that's hard, because I think the more you push somebody to come to a school, they're coming maybe not for the right reasons. I don't want somebody here because I want them to be here. That's not going to be enough, and that's not going to be, most of the time, not going to be a good fit. So it's got to be that combination. We want people here because they want to be here. To your point, I think we're lucky enough that for the most part, when we do the things we do with our programs and with the type of people we are, people want to be here because it is a good product. But the whole recruiting landscape just pushes people to do it earlier, sooner, forcing them. There are programs out there recruiting and saying, yeah, well, you have a spot, and we're going to go first come, first serve, which just, I think, puts obviously the high school student athletes in just a really tough spot. So,
Yeah, that's really, the landscape has changed. I told Connie this story, but somewhere in the fairly recent past, I read that an 8th grader had committed to, it was either Wisconsin or Minnesota ice hockey. 8th grader, I said, Connie, there's a good chance, 50-50, the coach will be dead. I mean, holy mackerel, 8th grade. And so the thing has sped up. I mean, when I was at Dartmouth, I mean, we've got kids 9th, 10th grade committing in lacrosse. The landscape is just really bizarre now in terms of fit. The other thing I would share would be that one day I was walking through LaSalle. My office used to be in LaSalle. And a bunch of our guys were playing at one end. And as I walked by them, I heard one of the kids say something that, had he said it in practice, he would have turned his uniform in and never worn it again. Actually, it would have been better had I done that, now that I think about who I'm talking about. But one of my other players said, we don't say that and we don't do that at Williams. And here's what I thought about. You know that your culture has been stabilized when your player's mouth opens and your voice comes out, right? That's really, really an important piece of this. And that gets into the buy-in that kids are going to have, and you have to get kids to buy in. And the last piece is they have to love it. Like, it's hard here. You know, there are academic responsibilities that are among the highest in the country. We have great professors, demanding professors. It's hard. You have to love it. And I would call some kids in occasionally. There weren't too many of them, but I go, why do you play? I don't understand why you play. Because you don't seem happy. You're frankly annoying me every day. And this is a bad marriage. So I want you to think about either go to your room and get your happy face and bring it with you tomorrow, or just come and turn your practice gear in, all right? Because I want you to be happy. And as teachers, is there anything worse than dragging someone through the puddle of knowledge, hoping that a little bit sneaks in the mouth? No, I told people for years, I will coach strategy 24/7, 365. I'm not coaching effort. You either bring your effort, this is what's expected. Now, you know, freshmen don't understand what playing hard is. They think they're playing hard, right? As freshmen, they have no idea what playing hard is. You know, and I would have moms and dads sit in my office and go, oh, he loves basketball. He practices 6 hours a day. I go, no, he doesn't. Nobody practices 6 hours. He's goofing off. Tell him to take a ball and work hard for an hour, and he'll be fine. He'll improve. All right, now we're approaching the end here. The last question I think is really an important one, and that is we're well into the 21st century now. And so not only has the landscape changed, but needs of programs have changed. I'm curious what the issues in front of Williams Athletics, what are our needs? What needs do we have both for you as your program, but also the department and Williams? Steve, you want to start us with this one?
No.
By the way, Steve, I have to say, I was so thrilled to hear that, again, this is a second epiphany. He heard me when I used to tell people, this is simple. Work hard and understand the place. If you work hard and don't understand the place, that name that fits is Larry Catuzzi, who came here to coach football from Ohio State. And on the first day of practice, kids came down late from lab, and he goes, well, where were you? Well, Coach, I had bio lab. Well, get out of it. He worked hard. He knew what work was. He had no idea what Williams is. If you understand Williams but don't work hard, that's not going to work either, right? So you have to put both of those things together. And, you know, I remember telling our staff here at Williams and Dartmouth, simple and easy are two different things. The problem you want to solve is simple. You want to be a better basketball player, right? You want to shoot the ball better? Take 1,000 shots a week. That's 52,000 shots a year. If you're not better at the end of a year, buy a clarinet. Because you're not going to be a basketball player, okay? And so something can be simple, but it's not easy because you have to go put the work in, right? You've got to put the work in. So, Meghan, let me ask you to start this. What's on the plate? What's on the front burner?
That's my boy right there.
I think, you know, yeah, you can just walk down towards where the rink is. You can see what it looks like around there and then imagine something nicer around there. And I think that that's way above my pay grade and how that would get done. But I think, you know, new facilities would be great. And that's hopefully in the works. And that's a question to ask you know, my boss's boss tomorrow if you're going to meet with Maud, for sure.
Yeah,
That's excellent. I remember telling our staff one time, our administration, we got to blow up the weight room. You got to throw a bomb in there, right? And then, of course, I get called into the dean of faculty's office. Have you been threatening to blow up the weight room?
Harry, you need to know the place.
I didn't understand the place, evidently. But I think, when I saw the building gone, Town Fieldhouse, now in my second year as AD, we did a facility study, which got read and then put on a shelf. That facility, the one that imploded, was on there. Ice hockey was on there, right? So it's only been, that's just 23 years. Things move slowly here. Kev?
Yeah, I mean, the clear answer is facilities, and it's not in any, at the faculty meeting last week, I mean, Maud talked about all the changes to campus, the new bio and science centers, the new art museum they're building, the new libraries, all the great work they've done on campus. And she said the number one reason for that is to attract the best faculty in the world so that the best students in the world want to come to Williams College. And as Coach mentioned, we as athletic faculty really take pride in being part of the faculty. And as I said, whoever becomes the next swim coach has incredibly big shoes to fill and needs to be one of the best coaches in the world. One, because that's what the Williams College students deserve, just like they do in all their other classroom spaces. And in order to do that, same reason they need a new bio and chem labs, same reason we need a new art museum, all right, to attract the best teachers and educators and leaders in those spaces so that we can keep attracting the best Williams College students, student athletes, and people. And I think that is, without a doubt, where the department is at. I would say we have come a long way in other avenues of staffing, of budgets to go out and have experiences at teams, but also go out and, for me, go all over the country to find those, great student athletes. So some things have come a long way on the kind of budget and the people side, but now the facilities are at a point where if we want to keep getting the best people as staff, faculty, teachers, which will then help us attract the best to Williams, that's where we're at.
Steve, take a crack at it, and then we're going to take questions.
Yeah, for sure. So I'll go wholeheartedly agree, and I'll take it maybe a little bit different tact. I think we were at our best in my memory, obviously during Harry's, 17 years, 17 for 17 in Sears Directors Cups. I think as a place like this can do, I think we got a little bit, and this might not be this is just my opinion. I think we got a little complacent. I think we rested on our laurels a little bit, in particular as it relates to athletics, not us, but I think this place, because I think it just kept happening and happening and happening and happening and happening. And towards the end of it happening and us having outstanding athletic teams, I think it started going downhill a little bit. And even if it was just slowly at the beginning, I just think it was going this way, even though we and people who were leading it sort of were able to continue to make it happen. Diminishing resources eventually led to some diminishing sort of returns. And I was at Harvard for 3 years. It shocked me how, I think, just in general, that place treated people. They were like, well, we're Harvard, so we're going to get the next person. I actually think this place is significantly better, but I think there's a little bit of that in the DNA and the nature, and I think that's part of what's
Kevin, I think we
happening.
might be looking for the fourth swim coach here pretty soon.
I know, you even let me pass it to these two. but-
Honesty. We weren't expecting honesty. So I'm just hiding out at 275 Gale Road now in my life, but I watch, and I think I totally agree with Steve. You know, had
I'll
we
be
had
on the
more time,
couch
we were
next
gonna-
to you soon.
Yeah, that's the first time actually I agree with you on anything. But I think you start to take winning for granted. And I thought, just as an institution, kids have a marvelous way of arriving at a pinnacle and forgetting what it took to get there, right? And that's why no matter who you have coming back on a team, Mike Krzyzewski wrote a book called Every Season is a Lifetime. Kevin can bring back the same 12 players and bring in 2 great kids. The next year, that's a different team. Because kids grow, kids actually regress. And so you have to deal with that in a way. But I think facilities, and I think a focus that allows our coaches to have what we think are the best jobs in the country. They can be, right? They're not necessarily, but they can be. So, Sean, we're happy to take a few questions. The panel can take some questions.
Thank you. We have time for about 1 or 2 questions, I think. So we're going to start here with Don.
Thank you very much. Very enlightening. I'm going to talk about the progression. My name's Don Ross. I'm class of 65. So you're talking about the progression. And when you had your feet going out from freshman to senior, that's what I want you to address, is that Meghan's saying that the athletes come and they're the best at their sport. And that's been a whole lot of their life, a big focus of it. And then they get to Williams, and they grow and mature, and they start finding their other things in life. And then they get to like junior or senior year, and they say, do I want to still keep putting in the work or not? And like Kevin said, you had to bench somebody who was a junior. So what do you do with like a senior who's a captain or a leader, but who is not as good anymore, or isn't as involved, but still wants to be on the team or doesn't want to be? How do you manage that progression? Thank you.
Yeah, so I would just say very briefly that you have to provide value in your program that allows that young man or young woman to stay in the program, because there are other things happening in that program that are positive enough for that athlete to want to be a part of it. The second thing is, I think, when they find other interests, it would be interesting for me to see the correlation between the other interests being found and them not playing as much, right? So I think sometimes, minds start to wander if you're not, because again, it came easy to them in high school for the most part. So you guys want to reflect on that a little bit?
So what I'll say sometimes to the players with that is like, I'm also a jock nerd, as we'll sometimes call the student athletes at Williams, but, it was top of my class in high school, like valedictorian, all those things. And I show up at Bowdoin, get my first C, and I call my mom crying, being like, I'm a failure, I'm whatever. I tell my players that same thing happens to you when you play a sport, right? And that doesn't mean I dropped out of college and didn't get my undergraduate education, right? So that's the piece, is sometimes we're on and sometimes we're off, and we're either, doing well or learning, right, to get better. And so that piece we talk about a lot, and the value add of not tying your happiness to how much you play. Whoever can fix that, if I can figure that out, I'll be retired and I'll sit over here with you guys and we'll go
Bottle
golf
that.
at the Connick. Yeah.
I think the word that Meghan said earlier was just, I think if you have to create a great environment that they want to keep coming to, regardless of their playing time. Alex Burrell, who's great field hockey coach, I think she talked in one interview about she'll break it down for the Williams College students about how much time you spend practicing and how much time you play in the game. And if you're going to dictate the entire experience off the 10% of time that is competitions, you're forgetting the 90% of the experience that everyone takes part in, that 90%. I also think the Division III model is still one of the best models, because we don't have to be just about our sport for 12 months out of the year with our student athletes. We all wish we had a little bit more time with them, maybe just follow the actual rules. But in the off seasons, we get to explore those other interests they have with them. We get to encourage them to pursue them. We get to kind of debrief and talk about their role and talk about their value to the team if it's not scoring the points and stuff. So I do think the Division III model, I think, lends to helping a lot of those student athletes a little bit more. They don't like it in the moments all the time, but if you're creating a group that fits the place, loves each other, hopefully they want to keep being a part of it. And I think the model, helps with that a lot.
Great. Thank you. I think we have time for one more question. Layla?
You talked a lot about recruiting athletes to the program. It's a much less frequent event, but would you talk a little bit about what is done to recruit coaches apart from having current facilities?
What was the end of the question? What we do to
What you do to recruit coaches other than having current facilities?
I guess, I seem to be doing assistant coaching searches every 15 months, so I think I'm most well-versed in the hiring and recruiting practices in our department. But no, it's the same, I think staff and faculty is very similar to how you recruit the students. And it is looking for the right people that, as Coach Sheehy said, know this place, value this place, and are gonna come in and work hard because they wanna be a part of it. So that's part, the facilities. I think things I touch on are definitely the community part. The fact that, even when I was an assistant coach here, I knew the athletic director as Coach Sheehy. I knew and had relationships and kept in touch with other head coaches. That doesn't happen everywhere, and it gets to happen here. You also hope one of the ways is the success. On the fields, on the court, that you can lead some of the best teams, in your sport at this level. And that is exciting to any kind of competitor and teacher. So, trying to get them to understand the people they'll be around in this supportive community. And then, the facilities and the kind of our labs definitely play a part.
I would just add briefly that, when I was at Dartmouth, we used search firms for major sports, and that search firm did all the work for you until the actual process of bringing people onto campus. But here, when I was the athletic director, you just have to have, I always had a short list. If I had a particularly successful coach that I thought might leave, I always had a short list of 4 or 5 people for almost every team. That I would be, and just watching New England, watching the Midwest, watching the West Coast, you can do that. And then I think that this place draws people. There's a certain amount, and I think there's a lot of people out there who have no idea how good these jobs are. That actually, I'm always shocked that we don't get more Ivy League coaches, assistant coaches who have been successful in our pools. And so I don't think a lot of people know, but I would use Dick Farley as an example. He came here, he had just played for the San Diego Chargers. He came here, he thought he'd be here a year or two, and then 30 plus years later, he's a legend and in the Football Hall of Fame. And I remember, to close, he said he was recruiting a son of Joe Paterno. And he talked to Mrs. Paterno, and she said, why don't you come see him play? He goes, well, I'm not allowed to. We're not allowed to recruit like that. And she said, you have the best job in the country. And he said, I know it, right? And so, can I just close briefly, Sean? Wherever you are. Okay, so I think a couple things should be noticed here. One, these are really quality people, and have all had success here and all understand the place. And they wouldn't be successful if they didn't understand the place. To the larger question of athletics, I just want to say that if you've seen Farley Lamb Field, right, Williams built well there. But Williams doesn't have, I'm going to piggyback on you now, Williams doesn't build well ordinarily athletically. They just don't, right? And so a lot of our facilities that are probably below what we would like them to be, part of that is the way we were originally built, part of that is the way they've developed. Our ice hockey rink didn't have ends on it, right? It was like a wind tunnel. Did you know that, Megan?
Oh, sure did.
Yeah. And I watched games in there as a 12-year-old, my thumbs were blue. Right? And so it's really important that if there is a facility discussion going on right now, that Williams does it right. because when you make these decisions, you live with them for 40 to 50 years. And quite frankly, I want these guys' classrooms to be as good as any other classroom on our campus, because they are some of the best teachers. So thank you for being here today, folks. Thank you guys in the panel.